Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a very interesting show coming up for you. All right, we're going to talk about this Texas A&M matchup, and I really expect this to be a battle, and I'm going to talk to you about that quite a bit because this is not South Carolina we're going up against. Now, their quarterback's not as good as Spencer Rattler, but they've got several areas where they are better than Carolina was. So this is probably going to be a battle in the trenches as much as anything. And I'll show you why I think that and several other things. So let's get into it. All right, I didn't do a show yesterday, but I watched a bunch of ball games. I mean a bunch. I'm sure you did too. The Kentucky-Georgia game, Georgia and Carson Beck. Carson Beck found his game against Auburn in that last series where he really found his accuracy. And I think that really propelled him into this game because Kentucky's got a solid defense, and Beck just carved them to pieces. That was unreal. Then, did you see the Miami-Georgia Tech game? That was monumentally the dumbest thing that I've about ever seen. Now, I've been giving Billy Napier a bunch of grief about running off 24 seconds in the third quarter and 22 seconds in the third quarter of two separate games where he was down 3 scores. That's nothing. Look, he should get an award compared to what this guy did. Cristobal, all he's got to do is knee the ball. How do you hand the ball off, let him run into the secondary where he could be stripped, when all you got to do is just have the quarterback knee the ball?
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
That was demonstrably stupid. I still can't believe it to this day. That was just Anyway, watched, of course, the Texas A&M Alabama game, and I watched that with a lot of interest. We're going to talk about that quite a bit. And actually, let's get into their stats. Now, here you can see Jalen Milroe played a solid game, 21 of 33. He threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT, very solid. He was their entire offense. You'll see what I'm talking about when I show you the rushing numbers. Max Johnson was very pedestrian. 14 for 25, 239 yards. He played a solid game and realized he's the backup. 1 touchdown, 1 INT, but that was at home, whereas Milroe was on the road, and it's tougher to play on the road, as you know. But when you look at the rushing, 23 yards total. Now, Milroe had minus 31 because of sacks, but even without that, they only had, 54 yards, which is terrible for Alabama. Remember, Alabama was going to rush the ball, and they were going to go back to the old school, the way it used to be. Saban was going to go back to the future.
This baby hits 88 miles per hour. You're going to see some serious
What did I tell you?
Well, guess what? That hadn't worked out so good. So now they're stuck really having to rely on Milroe, and that's why, yes, they're 5-1, but, man, I'm telling you, that was tight. They could have lost that game. They also could have easily won it had somebody not blocked in the back or did a foolish block 15 yards behind basically a scoop and score. Why do you block somebody 15 yards behind the play? What is the point of that? It's crazy. It really is. There are some things that happen in football where you're just like, somebody's just not thinking. Anyway, let's take a look at the rushing for Texas A&M. They didn't do much better. They had 67 yards, and that's without, any sacks to speak of. They just had them -3. So Le'Veon Moss, they've got good running backs too, but they just couldn't run the ball either. And that's because both defensive lines, Alabama and Texas A&M, are very good. And this guy Smith right here is a very good player. We're going to be seeing him a lot next Saturday. They've got good players over there. They do. It's just Alabama's got a good defense. Now, you look at these stats. First downs, neither team had very many, only 16. Total yards, 344 versus 306. That's very, very pedestrian if you add the total. Alabama could only do it through passing. Pretty much A&M, they pretty much had to almost strictly go to passing. And again, Max Johnson, his percentages aren't that good. We're going to take a look at leaders on that. But I did want to show you this. 14 penalties, 99 yards. It really hurt Alabama bad and also cost them that scoop and score. And that's kind of what Alabama's been doing a lot. Now, granted, it was on the road and it was really loud. A&M's a very loud place to play. But this is normally what happens when they lose. When they start getting 10-plus penalties, that's what cost them last year. You remember they had a ton against us.
Remember?
But yeah, yards per rush, Alabama 0.9, Texas A&M 1.9. So that is a concern, and we're going to talk about that. Now look, Tennessee has to rely on rushing the ball more this year than we did last year. It's really important, and I don't know how successful we'll be on the ground against Texas A&M. They've got a great defensive line. It's all 4+ and 5 stars. Every one of them, they're either 5 stars or almost a 5-star. So they're loaded up front. And I don't know how much rushing we'll be able to do. Now, granted, we spread the field beautifully. That's the one great thing about Heupel's offense. He'll spread you big time, and we'll be at home, which is great. A 3:30 kickoff, which is totally fine. So I think we'll have some success, but it's not going to be like South Carolina where we can push them around. Also, Texas A&M has a solid offensive line. They don't have a weak offensive line, so I don't know how much pressure we can put on Max Johnson. But he's not Spencer Rattler either. It's not like he's going to throw for 400 yards and go crazy on you. But I think he'll have a solid game. He's a smart kid. He comes from an NFL background. His dad was an NFL QB. So he knows what to do and what decisions to make. He's just not super talented like the 5-star that Texas A&M did have, which was Connor Wagman before he broke a bone in his foot and has been out for the entire season. So, we are going up against a good quarterback. He's not great. Now, with our quarterback, Joe Milton, let me show you how he's been playing. Here are all the stat leaders in QB for the SEC. Jaden Daniels being number 1. Carson Beck's now number 2. I think he's going to overtake Jaden Daniels, but you never know. Daniels is really a good player. Brady Cook has been playing really well. They did lose that game yesterday, but he's been playing great. And then you look, Joe Milton's number 11 out of 15, and he's at 63%. He does have 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, so those numbers are solid. But his yards per attempt is around 7 yards. Now let's take a look at Max Johnson. He's actually below that. He's at 60%, which is not a very good number at all. 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and about an 8-yard average. And his rating's a 150, and Joe Milton's is a 139. So I'm not sure that either team has an advantage at QB right now. Now, Joe is more talented than this guy, but will he be able to run? So we don't know about his knee. He showed us he could run the other day in the UTSA game, but then he got hurt in a sack. So we'll see how this plays out. But I do want to show you one other stat. Joe Milton's only got 5 sacks against him, whereas Max Johnson has 8, and Max has only started 2 games. Okay. So he's very sackable because he's a little bit of a stationary quarterback. He can run. He's a big dude. He's about 6'4", 230. But he's not fast. He's not going to outrun anybody that we've got. So he's very sackable. Joe doesn't get sacked because the truth is he gets the ball out of his hands pretty quickly, and most quarterbacks do in a Josh Heupel system. But I do think that will be hopefully an advantage for us because, again, they do have a solid offensive line, but it's not unbelievable. And they don't have a really dual-threat quarterback. So I feel like we can get to him, and we need at least 4 sacks in this game. And I think Neyland Stadium will help us a lot. So we're going to be talking a lot about Texas A&M and many of the other teams we've got coming up because this is really the heart of our season. The first 5 games are usually pretty easy for us.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
And we're 4-1. I would have much preferred to be 5-0. I kind of expected us to be 5-0, but we did take that loss down there at the Swamp, and that was very unfortunate. But we did get revenge against South Carolina, which was good. And they probably have the best quarterback. I don't know. Carson Beck's looking pretty good and Jaden Daniels, but Spencer Rattler's right up there with him, in my opinion. He just doesn't have an offensive line to help him. But anyway, I think this is going to be a really fun game. And I do want to take an opportunity to thank today's sponsor, and that is Sevierville Golf Club. This is the course I play every week. They've got 2 great golf courses. They've got the River, which is very demanding. They've also got the Highlands, which is more of a shot maker's course. It's not as long. The course conditions are fantastic. They've really been great this year. Even with all the rain, they've been terrific. And the staff is very friendly, easy to work with. And the nice thing about having 2 golf courses, I used to run a golf course back in the day called River Islands. We only had the 1 course. Having 2 golf courses, even if you're busy, you're not busy. There's plenty of room out there. The Rangers are always running around making sure that people aren't playing slow, so you can get around the golf course in a pretty good amount of time. So be sure to check out Sevierville Golf Club. They have a fantastic range. If you want to work on any part of your game, you can. They got a terrific 19th hole mulligans. They'll take real good care of you in there. So be sure to check out Sevierville Golf Club. It's right off Highway 66 right in Sevierville. So, you know, if you're on vacation or if you're just a local, no problem. You just give them a call. They'll take good care of you. And even though it's called a club, it is open to the public. So be sure to check that out next time you're in the area or if you're a local. All right, folks, just wanted to cover Texas A&M, and I'm sure we'll be talking a ton about them coming up all week because this is a very important game. We need to get off to a good start with this whole rest of the season. We got 7 games left. Got 2 fairly easy wins in that, and the rest are going to be a dogfight. You know, you got Texas A&M. It's going to be tough. Georgia and Alabama, of course, is going to be tough. And then I tell you what, Missouri's playing well, and so is Kentucky. Even though Kentucky got boat raced yesterday, they're still a good, solid team. It's just Georgia's on another level right now, and they found their course. They found their way. So Georgia's going to be another juggernaut. I would suspect if Carson Beck continues to play like he did. He was 12 for 12 starting out and just looked fantastic. So when they come to Neyland, we're going to have to get on them, and we're going to have to disrupt all of that for sure. But we'll talk about that later. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols and, of course, all our opponents, all that good stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. Doesn't cost you anything. Would help me out. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.